Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, we have with us a very special guest, and his name is Sandy Rogers. Sandy is one of the most prolific minds on the topic of customer and employee loyalty. He will change the very way your organization views the topic and will help orient your company towards winning loyal customers and employees for life. Sandy Rogers is the leader of FranklinCovey's loyalty practice, a FranklinCovey offering which helps organizations increase customer and employee loyalty. He was previously the Senior Vice President at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and during his 14 years there, Sandy managed the turnaround of the London, England operation and led the teams that developed Enterprise's marketing and fleet services strategies, the advertising campaign Pick Enterprise, We'll Pick You Up, and the system for measuring and improving customer service across all branches. Before Enterprise, he worked in marketing at Apple and brand management at P&G. He has a bachelor's degree from Duke and an M.B.A. from Harvard Business School. So without further delay, welcome, Sandy.
Thank you so much, Yannick. I'm thrilled to be here.
All right. Now, Sandy, before we start off our interview, we always like to ask our guests if they could give us a little bit of their journey. How did you end up where you are today? You know, customer loyalty and customer experience. Is this something that you feel you were driven to by passion, or did you just end up there, just because of maybe what you studied at school? Could you share with us a little bit about that?
Of course. Well, I spent most of my career with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I joined the company, and one of my first challenges was to figure out how to help grow the business faster in the position of leading marketing. And we figured the best way to do that was to provide an experience that would get everybody to tell your friends about Enterprise so they would come back and help the business grow. And we had no measure of customer service. We thought we were pretty good across the 3,000 branches we had back then, but we had no metric. And so we early on measured it, figured out that we're good overall, but there was huge variation across the chain. And over the next 10 years, my team and I and the whole group at Enterprise figured out how to dramatically improve customer service. And as a result of what we did, Fred Reichheld at Bain wrote a book and introduced this whole idea of the Net Promoter Score. And so at Enterprise, I had a lot of different jobs, but when I retired about 10 years ago, FranklinCovey got in touch with me about launching a loyalty practice under their umbrella to help other companies build a culture like we had at Enterprise that was really focused on delighting customers to help the business grow faster.
Beautiful. So could you tell us a little bit about this loyalty practice? Like, what does it entail? If a company wanted to take on this venture in their organization, what are some of the things that would have to happen?
We do two things. We first help organizations measure the loyalty of their customers today and learn specifically not only what they need to do to improve, but equally important, who on their team needs to improve. We have a real passion for the importance of people in taking an ordinary experience and making it extraordinary. So you got to know who on your team is, terrific and should be studied for best practices and who needs coaching. So beyond the metrics, the second part of what we do in the FranklinCovey loyalty practice is provide training and a method that enable teams to get better at earning the loyalty of their customers faster.
I got you. Now, there's a book by Jeffrey Gitomer. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It says, customer satisfaction is priceless. Customer loyalty is, or is it the other way around? Are you familiar with that book?
I'm not, but I certainly agree with the concept. The difference between satisfaction and loyalty is huge. Which is
what my question was leading into. If you could share with us what you think that difference is and why is it so important?
Well, just thinking about our own experience as consumers, we may be satisfied and say, how was everything? Oh, it was fine. Yeah, I was satisfied. But the difference between that and the loyalty that every organization wants from its customers and its employees is huge. With loyalty, not only are customers, giving you all of their business, but in addition, they are enthusiastically talking you up, singing your praises, recommending you to all of their friends.
Mm-hmm.
You have the double impact of their business plus the business of all the people they talk to.
So loyalty is something that all organizations should aim for. True?
I think almost every organization that's serious about getting wants loyalty. They want loyalty from their customers. And we've learned over the last 25 years working with hundreds of different organizations that the key to increasing customer loyalty begins with improving employee loyalty.
So I'm so happy you touched on that. So as a customer service trainer, because that's how I got into having this podcast in the first place. Companies hire me to come in and train their staff in customer service, leadership development, employee, and team building and that kind of stuff. And I have found over the years, and I've had it reinforced by so many guests that we've interviewed on the podcast, that at the end of the day, when your service is poor, it's usually a symptom of something that's deeper within the organization, and it stems from the employees and, of course, leadership. So I want you to talk to us about why it's so important to have a healthy internal customer service culture.
Well, the customer experience rarely exceeds the employee experience. So, I absolutely agree with your thought that we've got to, as an organization, treat employees in a way that they will in turn take great care of our customers. And back to my enterprise experience, Jack Taylor, the founder of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which is the largest car rental company in North America and perhaps the world now, when you combine Alamo and National, which they also own, he said it's really simple. When people walk out of one of the thousands of enterprise branches, they should feel like, wow, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And we realize that that's all about our people and how the people are treating those customers. So when Jack would go with me to visit some of the branches that I was overseeing in London, England, he would ask the employees he'd meet, are you having fun? And I said, Jack, why are you asking them if they're having fun? Talk to them about their sales, about their customer service scores. He said, and he called me and many others sport. He said, sport, if they're not having fun, nothing else really matters. And so when we think about, well, how do we create an environment where people are having fun? Very simply, we believe it's putting them in a position to enrich the lives of other people, not just the customers, but each other, the people they work with every day. And that's what we talk about in this book through these 3 core loyalty principles.
Beautiful. So the book focuses on 3 core loyalty principles, and the book is going to be called, as you mentioned to me prior to the interview starting, Leading Loyalty, Cracking the Code to Customer Devotion. It's going to be available on Amazon, but the book is going to focus on how it is that you can infuse empathy, responsibility, and generosity into every interaction. Make those interactions warm and authentic. Ask the right questions. Listen to learn. Discover the real job to be done. Take ownership of the customer's issue. Follow up and strengthen the relationship. Share insights openly and kindly, and surprise people with unexpected extras. And the bonus, model, teach, and reinforce these essential behaviors through weekly team huddles. So what I'm getting is the book is not only focused on teaching the 3 principles, but it also is providing with the how-tos as to how you're going to maintain consistency, because that's the challenge in customer experience, right? So you go to a company and you have a great experience today, but you visit them next month when you travel, if we were to use enterprise as an example, and the experience you had last month is nothing compared to the one you had this month. And so how do they maintain being consistent in their behaviors, regardless of the location that you've gone to, regardless of the employee that you're dealing with?
That is such an important observation. Every company in the world has pockets of greatness, where you'll get good service. The difference between a good organization and a great customer service organization comes down to the consistency of great experiences across, every week and all their different locations and people and call centers, et cetera. And to drive that consistency, we believe you've got to do these 2 things. One, you've got to have good measures that are telling you every month, who's doing a great job and who needs coaching. And second, and what we talk about in the book, Leading Loyalty, is a process to make sure that people understand the principles essential to earning loyalty, to bring those to life each week. So in the book, we talk about having a 15-minute huddle each week with your team and first celebrate the people who are living the principle you talked about last week, then learn the nuances of how to apply the next one over the following week, and then making a commitment to each other to do these things and come back next week and talk about what was successful and what didn't work as well.
Yeah. So it's definitely having more conversations and helping people to grow and develop, because the more, I guess, robust your team is, the more knowledgeable they are of their shortcomings and limitations, then the better they'll be able to work at improving those interactions and not repeating the negative behaviors that will create negative experiences. Yeah?
No question. And just simply modeling the behavior you want is the first step. But then calling out, we don't need to wait a week to point out, gosh, Unique, I just want to tell you, I just saw how you interacted with that customer. That is absolutely fantastic. We've just talked about how important empathy is, and that was a perfect example. Yeah. So we've got to celebrate every time we see the behaviors that we want to happen more consistently.
So, and when you do that, it makes people aware of what it is that is correct. And they'll want to repeat that behavior because people love recognition. It's not just about the dollar in terms of getting more money, but it's also about how you make them feel in that experience, yeah?
Underline, underscore. It's not just what we measure that drives improvement. It's what gets celebrated. We want to leave our work each day and feel like, wow, I had a good day. Why was that? Because I made a difference. I was recognized for doing something great for one of my teammates or for one of our customers. And so the more celebration, the better.
Brilliant. All right. Now, Sandy, could you share with us, you've been in the customer experience realm for quite a bit of time now. How do you feel about customer experience on a global level, and where do you see it 5 or 10 years from today?
Well, in my own experience as a business and a consumer, sometimes it's absolutely dreadful, and we all have those stories.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's okay, and occasionally it's incredible. And when we think about those incredible experiences that each of us have as customers, we're all customers. It often comes down to the people and how they made us feel. Our behavior delivers the emotional experience essential for earning the fierce loyalty of other people. And so we really talk about in the book, Leading Loyalty, that you've got to have a loyalty leader mindset. You've got to begin with this idea that I am responsible, regardless of what your job is in the organization. You could be the CEO or you could be the assistant or the frontline person. You can choose to be a loyalty leader and adopt a loyalty leader mindset, which simply says, I am going to earn the loyalty of everybody I encounter by having empathy for them, taking responsibility for what it is they're trying to get done, and I'm going to be generous with them.
Very true. Very true. So I had also asked, apart from how you feel about customer experience, where do you see it 5 to 10 years from today? Do you think it's going to change very much? There's so much technology that's being introduced now. There's chatbots, there's so much things that are replacing that human interaction. But I personally believe that at the end of the day, even though these things are there to aid in the client experience, I think still people want to deal with another human being. Do you think that will change much 5 to 10 years from now?
I think increasingly we will see technology used in both positive and negative ways in our experience. If the people designing the technology are doing it with the loyalty principles in mind, if they have empathy for customers, technology is great. We've all learned how to do online banking. We've learned how to check ourselves in for flights. We've learned how to order things from Amazon. And when those things are working well, it's terrific. But there are times when we need a human being. I had a problem one time with Amazon, and I actually got a human being, and I was blown away by how well that they handled my problem. And it gave me tremendous confidence that, wow, not only do the people who design all this have empathy for me, but when I do have a problem, there's a human being there that will care and will take responsibility for getting it sorted out.
Amazing.
So I think it's going to be both over the next 10 years. It's going to be increased technology, but there will always be that human component that you alluded to.
Brilliant. So in the whole space of customer experience, regardless if you're a big, because a lot of our listeners for this podcast, they're small to medium-sized business owners, but some of them are also online business owners where they're not having a face-to-face interaction with their actual customers. What are some important considerations you think a person who operates in the online space should consider to improve on their customer experience? Especially seeing that they're lacking that, human element in terms of I'm not seeing you. I'm only talking to you or corresponding with you via some form of text or, instant message or email, written communication.
And every person has a customer, whether they're inside or outside the organization, and all of our work directly impacts their experience. The people behind the online customer experience need to ensure that it's fully aligned with the core loyalty principles. So if I use whatever, brilliant app has been designed, as a customer, do I walk away and feel like, wow, that was so easy? Mm-hmm. Whoever designed this is like, they're a genius. This is so great. And that comes from having empathy for me as the user. Now, if on the other hand, I'm typing in information that the company should already know, then I'm feeling like these people have no empathy for me. What's with that? I've been doing business with them for 5 years. So that these principles of empathy, responsibility, and generosity have to come through, regardless of whether it's a human being interaction or we're using technology to connect with the organization.
All right. So those are some things that they can definitely consider to try and improve on their client experience. Now, could you share with us maybe one online resource? What's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you couldn't live without in your business?
Well, I couldn't live without Google Maps. That's how I get everywhere.
I think that's the first time I've been doing these podcasts. That's the first guest I've had that said Google Maps. Wow, that's crazy.
I mean, the old days, they'd say, oh, just go take a left here, drive 3 blocks, take a right here, take a left here. It's like, no, I'm just going to put it in Google Maps.
Yeah, Google Maps is amazing. That's very true. I even use it here in Jamaica if I'm going out of town to somewhere that I'm not very familiar with. And I'm just amazed at how well it works. It's really accurate to the point. You've arrived at your destination on the right, and when you look over, it's exactly where you're going. So I totally agree. All right. Could you share now with us maybe some of the books that have had the biggest impact on you? And they don't necessarily have to be books that were customer experience related. Maybe as you've developed in your journey, in your business, are there books that have helped to grow you as the person as the whole in order to make you a better leader or an entrepreneur yourself?
Oh, I think the book I read back when it first came out, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that is a book. And I imagine have you read 7 Habits?
Yes, I have the 7 Habits and I have the 8th Habit.
Ah, and I don't know about you, but that book has just such enduring value. And to just keep revisiting, my children tease me about the 7 Habits and, reminding me, oh, Dad, that doesn't sound very win-win, or let's first to understand, then to be understood, Dad.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
I guess you have to live the advice you're preaching to your children.
True. And we all need people in our corner, in our tribe, to help keep us accountable because we're human. And yes, we read these books and we do our best to try and live these behaviors and attitudes on a daily basis. But sometimes we mess up. That's truth. So if we have people in our corner that know what those things are and they can call us out on it, it makes us even more aware and just keeps us aligned.
And that's one of the things we teach in Leading Loyalty. One of the there are 3 core loyalty principles. The third one is generosity. You got to have empathy for people, take responsibility for helping them, and then be generous with them. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that we're generous is we share our insights openly. So if you see something as my coworker or my friend that would really help me, we have a huddle in the book, Chapter 9, which describes how do you share insights with and think about millennials and Generation Z, where we've got a lot of confidence about how to share feedback online, but we want to have just as much confidence doing it, face to face, in person, where we let people know, hey, listen, I think you're terrific. Can I just share this thought with you? And And we haven't practiced this as one of the practices that we're teaching in the book.
So a lot of what you've stated since we started this interview has to do with practice. And I just want, if you could emphasize, for our listeners, how important it is, regardless of the industry that you are in or the profession or the roles that you practice on, you engage in on a daily basis. But in order for you to really master a particular skill or talent, practice is required, right? That's what builds the consistency.
No question. Practice, when we learn as kids, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
And when people hear things like empathy, responsibility, and generosity, they'll say, well, come on, I learned that stuff in kindergarten. And my response is, you did. We all did. And hopefully it's ingrained in our psyche. But just because empathy, responsibility, and generosity are common sense, unfortunately, they're not common practice in so many of our interactions. And so to practice and to reinforce, we say, have a huddle once a week. Bring your team together for just 15 minutes and celebrate the people who are doing these things. Teach them in detail in the nuances of, how can I really discover the real job to be done for somebody, which is a responsible practice, for example. And then challenge everybody to go try it this week and come back and share. And so we're creating space within the whirlwind of our busy lives to practice these things so that we get better and better.
Yeah. Very true. Okay, Sandy, could you share with us maybe what's one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about, either something that you're working on to develop yourself or your people?
I'm really excited about all the feedback we're getting from different organizations running these huddles. And I'll tell you a story. We recommend this huddle process. There's 11 different huddles, 11 chapters in the book. And we had this group of auto repair shops. And when we described, the empathy, responsibility, and generosity, they looked at me like, are you nuts? Come on. That's that lovey-dovey Covey stuff. These are guys, they got under the hood of cars. You really expect them to get together and talk about this stuff. They ran these huddles for 6 months. And we had their customer service scores because we were providing metrics. And both they and we were very pleasantly surprised by how dramatically they were able to improve their customer service. People get stuck in a rut. They want to get better at customer service, but they don't know how to do it. They get frustrated. And for these auto repair shops, they improved their scores by more than 10 points on average. The top 3 or 4 shops improved by 20 points. So I get excited about working on something that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And so when the book is released, now people will have a how-to process that they can have, a physical Bible that they can work with that will help them to achieve those kinds of results. Yeah?
This is what's different between this book, Leading Loyalty, and all the other books on loyalty, which are great, by the way. I love Fred Reichheld's work on the Net Promoter Score, The Ultimate Question, where Fred, most of the books up until now talk about the theory of loyalty, about the economics, about what the return on investment is by improving it. Mm-hmm. This book talks about a process. We give you the principles, the practices, and a process to actually earn greater loyalty. And it's not just from your customers and employees. The principles apply to your personal life too. Now, apply these things to your spouse, your kids, your family, and friends.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. As a matter of fact, there is a principle I think it's from the 8th Habit. It's called the 90-10 principle that Covey speaks of. And regardless of the workshop that I'm doing, whether it's a leadership workshop or it's an employee workshop or, it's for low-level employees versus, C-suite employees, at the end of the day, I always introduce principle at the beginning of the workshop because I think it's so important. And it ties back to your initial introduction when you spoke to the fact that in order for people to be loyal, there has to be some emotional engagement and connection there. So if you're familiar with the principle, Covey says that 90% of everything that happens to you, it's based on your response and your reaction, and 10% you have no control over. And I think as customer service, people, leaders, employees, frontline people, regardless of where you are in the company, if you remember that fundamental principle, that customer coming in, blazing, mad steam coming through their ears, saying things that are just unconscionable, that you're like, oh my goodness, why is this customer saying this to me? If you can just think in your mind, just put yourself in a frame of mind where 10% is that customer. I have no control over their own behavior, but I control how I'm going to respond. I control what I'm going to say. I control the thoughts I'm going to have about this customer. It can really transform that whole interaction.
Exactly. That's taking personal responsibility, right? For you get to choose your response. I mean, you carry your own weather, to use the Stephen Covey phrase. But that's such an important paradigm or mindset to adopt before that, nasty customer comes in the door and yells at you for something that you really had nothing to do with. If we've got that mindset, we can say, you know what, this is not about me.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
And I can have empathy. I can say, oh my gosh, wow, that is incredibly frustrating. I would be really angry too. Tell me more about this, right? And just letting people talk. At Enterprise, one of the best ways to create a fiercely loyal customer is to find a problem and then just hear them out. Just say, tell me about what happened. Offer a sincere apology. Say, oh my gosh, I totally get that. It's incredibly frustrating. And then ask in a very sincere way, what can we do to make this right for you?
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
more than 90% of the time, the customer will say nothing. Wow, thank you for listening.
True. Yeah.
And so get a heartfelt apology.
Yeah. There are times when, as you said, the customer just wants someone to listen, someone to pay attention, someone to not discount or discredit what they're saying by just moving on to the next thing, but actually paying attention to this moment now that I'm sharing this experience with you.
I love the Chinese character for listen. It contains the symbols for the ears.
Really?
The Chinese character for listen contains the symbols for the ears, the eyes, and the heart.
Because those are all the things that you're listening with.
And so often we just use our ears, but if we're not listening with our eyes, we're missing, the emotion that's being expressed through that clenched fist, right? And if we're not listening with our heart, we're not sensing, how upset this person really is.
True.
Using all three. And so much of it's interesting, the word listen and silent.
They're the same letters, yes.
Same letters.
Yes, that is true.
Myself, stay silent.
Very true. And then there's also the fact that God gave you 2 ears, yes, but he only gave you 1 mouth. So I'm thinking that, maybe there's some reason behind that. And it could be that we really need to spend more time listening and less time talking. And unfortunately, in our society, people do the opposite. There's lots of talking and less listening.
That's my father's favorite advice. your ears to eyes. Your ears to mouth ratio.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Now, Sandy, could you tell our listeners where they could find you online? So they've listened to this episode. They're excited. They're pumped. They're interested in this loyalty practice that you're a part of. And they definitely want to, hop on and get your book so that they can expand their knowledge as it relates to increasing loyalty and, becoming loyalty leaders. Where can they find you online?
They can find me on LinkedIn or on Facebook, on the FranklinCovey website. They can Google Sandy Rogers Loyalty, and they can go on to any bookstore, any online bookstore, and many physical bookstores will have Leading Loyalty starting on April 16th. And we'd love to hear their reactions to these principles that we feel are so important for earning fierce loyalty.
Great. All right. Now, before we wrap our interview up, we always like to ask our guests if you have one quote or saying that during times of adversity or challenge in your life, you kind of revert back to this quote or this saying, and it kind of keeps your, focus. It kind of refocuses you.
Well, my stepfather told me when I was in high school, no risk it, no biscuit.
No risk it, no biscuit.
So whenever you're feeling comfortable in the shallow end of the pool and feel like you've got it under control, throw yourself in the deep end of the pool and keep going deeper, because that's the only way that we grow as people.
When you have some skin in the game, eh?
Yeah, you gotta get in the deeper end of the pool every time you start feeling comfortable in the shallow water.
True.
That's how we grow.
That is how we grow. That's very, very true. Very, very true. Wonderful. So thank you so much, Sandy, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to sit with us today and share some great nuggets from your upcoming book, Leading Loyalty. We are going to have the link to the book in the episode of this podcast. And as Sandy said, and I said it as well, it will be available for release on April 16, which is Tuesday. And you can also pre-order the book. But by the time this episode is released, the book, of course, would have been out already. So you can definitely go on and head over to Amazon. And FranklinCovey's website will have the book available as well on their site for sale. Yes?
And we'll know it'll be available from any of your online booksellers. So
Okay.
that's the best place to get it. Go to your
Okay.
favorite bookstore.
So go to your favorite bookstore. My go-to is Amazon. So,
Yes.
and you can definitely get the book there. And we're also going to have links to the different social platforms that Sandy's available on if you want to connect with him directly and take this conversation further. So thank you so much, Sandy, for taking time, for sharing with us. Really, really had a great conversation. I appreciate your gracious comments and the wonderful things you shared with our listeners. And I really hope that the things that you've shared will help them to become more loyal and fierce leaders, to create more loyal and fierce devotion from their customers and employees.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Anit.
So just to remind our listeners, you can head on over to Facebook and join our private Facebook group. It's called Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And feel free to follow us on Twitter at Navigating CX. So until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.